So, you want to upgrade your existing Hot Toys base without actually modifying it or altering it? Well, you've come to the right place. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Crafted by Metamorphic Customs. I'm Desi, and today I'll be showing you a few things about how to make interchangeable scenery between all the same size Hot Toys bases. This is a follow-up to my last episode, which there'll be a link to somewhere here, maybe, or up there. I don't know, it's somewhere around here. But in the last episode, we made what I like to call a topper, which is what we're going to do today. It's a topper that goes over the base, but without any overhanging rocks on the front or the back. Something even faster that you can do. So before we go to the workshop, as I always like to say, look in the video description below for the list of materials I'm going to be using. I'm going to be naming them as I go through the process. But you don't have to pause the video, take down notes. It's already in the links. Let's get to the important part. Let's go to the workshop. Okay, so we'll start with this pre-cut plastic base. We're not going through the cutting process here because we did this exact step in my last video. And you can find the template with the exact measurements to cut this in the link below. Just remember, if you download this template and you print it out, print it to size. Then just cut it out, use it as a template over the styrene base. And you'll find the perfect measurements. And of course, always check it before you start your project like I've done here. It should fit perfectly over the rectangular Hot Toys base. We're going to start off with some AK Interactive dry ground paste. This is a terrain paste. Now, in reality, why I'm using this is because, well, it's really good terrain paste, but also because I have some left over from the last project that hasn't dried out yet. And I've already tinted this, might as well put it to good use, and, well, we're making a ground terrain, so why not? Go ahead and cover the entire base with this. And we're not only using this as terrain covering, but we're also going to use it as just a glue for the next step. Which, what I'm going to do here, is grab some sand. Now this is just typical sand. You can get either sand from outside your home if you have, dirt, whatever, just sand. Or you can buy Woodland Scenics sands from a hobby shop, whatever you need to do. But the purpose of this sand is really to give it some extra texture. I'm just going to pour that over, and then the paste, which is still wet, haven't let it dry yet, will act as a glue. Now we're going to use actual rocks. That's right, these are rocks from the outside yard, right? But just find any rocks that you think look cool. If you don't have anything around your place, just go for a walk. And if you, worst case scenario, if you can't find anything there, go to the local garden center and buy a bag of rocks, whatever rocks you think look good. This is a good example of actually using the environment around you to build terrain, right? Sometimes you're going to have to carve out rocks because you just can't find the right shape or size, and you'll carve them out of XPS foam. But in this case, we're using just actual rocks. Go ahead and just place them down on the base, however you think looks best. Get some hot glue, and we're going to glue them down. Hot glue really works the best here. It has a pretty good hold because these rocks are actually the rocks, so they're going to have a little bit of weight to them. So I find that hot glue does really work. You can also use super glue here, but again, in my experience, hot glue works the best. You should start gluing this once the terrain paste has finally dried. So the terrain paste under it and the sand that's embedded in the terrain paste now is completely dry. We're going to start off with some branches here. Again, go outside, grab some branches, just make sure that they're not brittle or falling apart, And then once you have a couple of branches that you like that are going to act as a deadfall, right, on your scenery and your terrain here, go ahead and cut them to size if they're too big, but just place them wherever you'd like here, and then you know what to do next. Use some hot glue, glue them down. Again, you can put them wherever you want. I personally try to stay away from the very center of the base so that the figure later on has a flat area where they can actually place their feet, right? So if you don't want to use the grabber post, you don't have to, right? But if you want to place these branches or even the rocks right in the middle, that's fine. Just remember you're going to maybe be forced to use that post to make the figure stand later on. Next, I'm going to use some Elmer's glue, PVA glue, right? Make sure if you're going to use Elmer's glue, it's the glue all, not the school glue, okay? And you're going to water that down about 50-50 or so. You're just getting basically a milk consistency, looks like milk there. And you will use this coming up for the leaf scatter. Wondering what that is chopped oregano, right? I find that's the easiest way and cheapest way, right? The other way is the obvious one, when you go outside, get some dried up leaves, crush them all up to a particular size, right? You know, getting chopped oregano I find is much easier than going through the trouble of doing that, because you have to actually chop them up and make sure they're a good size. Chopped oregano already comes in a perfect size. This is straight out of the bottle here. So just place the chopped oregano on the glue you've laid down. And then after that, you're going to use a pipette or even maybe just a brush. You're going to grab some of that watered down glue and place it over top of the leaf scatter you've put down. And that's just to make sure that the leaf scatter stays in place, create a seal or barrier. I'm also going to use a little bit of that glue and a brush to place a couple of leaves on top of the rocks. Next up, we're going to go to our washes, and we're going to use some FW inks here. These are acrylic water-based inks, and I'm going to get sepia. I'm going to put about 3 to 4 drops of sepia in my palette here. And I'm going to fill up the rest of that with H2O. This is just water. I would say that's about 30 to even 35 drops of water to 3 to 4 drops of actual ink, and that was sepia colored ink again. Then I'm going to come in with a pipette. Again, you can use this with a brush and just drip it on, but I find it easier to use a cheap pipette here. And you're just going to come back in over the leaf scatter and start dropping this watered down ink over it to filter it, right? It'll bring everything together and add some shade and some tonality here. Give it a few passes, you know, put some on the center of the base too, whatever you think looks better for you. Next up is Woodland Scenics coarse turf or clumps. And I'm going to go get some more glue this time. This is the same watered down Elmer's glue, 50-50 Elmer's, 50-50 water, right? Or 1-to-1 Elmer's, 1-to-1 water. And I'm going to pour it basically right next to the rocks or under the rocks. And this is going to represent maybe some moss or just some greenery growing from under the rocks or under the deadfall maybe. And it just basically gives the terrain a little bit more color. Makes it look a little more alive here. And you can just put that wherever you'd like, or not put any of this at all. You could just leave it at and stop at the leaf scatter, right? Completely up to you. And I'm using the back of the brush, so the back of the handle, to just kind of push that in there under the rock so you can just barely see it. Once you're done with everything, because we're going to put snow on this, you're going to have to make sure you coat this with some kind of flat, clear coat. I'm using a Krylon product here and it works great. Just take it outside, give it a few coats. Next up, we're going to make the actual snow. There's a lot of products you can use to make the snow. I like the Woodland Scenics Snowflake. And it's a very basic technique. You're going to pour some of the snowflake into a disposable cup. And then you're going to do about a 1-to-1 mixture of the snowflake and just Elmer's glue. After you do a 1-to-1 mix of the glue and the Woodland Scenic Snowflake, you're then going to pour some water into it. The more water you put in, the more watered down the snow will be. The less water you put in, the more of a kind of a powdery snow you'll get. There's no direct measurement, just get a feel for it. As soon as you start pouring in the water, start real slow, you'll get a feel for it when you mix it all together. When you're done, grab a brush, that's what I like to use, and then start applying it on the top surfaces of the rocks and some of the deadfall that you've placed on. Just the top surfaces. Try not to go too much around it, because then you have a very, very heavy snowfall, which is not what we're going for here, although it is an option. So it's at this point that you can decide, hey, this snow may be a little too powdery for me. If you want it to be more of a melted snow, you could add a little bit more water into your mixture and water it down. This is pretty good for me. And again, I'm using Woodland Scenics Snowflake for that mixture. I mentioned it was mixed in with PVA glue. Another way to make snow is using the exact same process I just mentioned, but instead of the Woodland Scenics Snowflake product, you use baking soda. Baking soda does make the best looking snow mixture, in my humble opinion. There is a big caveat to that though, and that is that baking soda could potentially yellow over time, and you'll get wonderful yellow snow. It's happened to me a couple of times. I can't find out the pattern, but it does happen, so that's why I use Woodland Scenic Snowflake for the mixture. And here you go, the final product. Not too bad. And this one's simple. No rocks hanging off over the side, toward the back or the front, just directly over the base. And it takes it from looking something like this to looking like this, with a little bit more character. So what'd you think? Pretty neat, huh? And if you're asking, wait a minute. So we made a forest covered in snow. Well, can I do it without the snow? The answer is yes. Can you do a desert scape? Yes. Or can you just do mud? Just textured mud, so you can have a different option? The answer is yes. You can do whatever you want. And a bigger question is, well, like, those are cool, but I don't really care about those bases with the nameplates. Maybe you don't. Maybe if you're saying to yourself, if I'm going to have a diorama, it's going to be something bigger, something that takes up the space within a Mod case, or the space within a D12 shelf, or any kind of bigger space, right? And the answer is you can do any of that using these techniques. That's the important part to remember. Just get creative. But anyhow, in the next video, you will see some of the techniques, or most of the techniques, used in the first two videos to make a larger diorama that will fit within a D12 shelf, your standard D12 shelf. So about 14 inches wide by 14 inches tall, a little taller than 14 inches, and about 11 inches, 10.5 inches deep, right? By the way, if you like this video, let me know. Just hit the like button. If you want to see the next episode and you want to stay tuned to all the other episodes, well then subscribe, hit the bell icon, and most importantly, if you think there's something I could be doing better with these dioramas, if you want to ask any questions, or if you just want to give other people advice on these dioramas, please go down to the comments and just kindly let me know what we could do better, what's an alternative method and that might give different textures or different colors. That's the place to do it. But until next time, stay crafted.